One factor that can soften the impact of interest rate hikes are rent increases. But you might also think, rents are already so high, is there actually room to raise them? So in this video, let's take a look to see what drives rent movements and what conditions might be able to bring the best rent growth and rent yields in Toronto. Before I continue, if you enjoy content like this, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel so you see more videos like this made specifically for real estate investors in Toronto. Let's start with the short-term rent trends first. Yes, there are times of the year where people move more than usual. In Zumper's April Canadian rent report, they talk about this and say that demand for rentals usually goes up as the weather gets warmer. That makes sense. More students move in and out in the summer, and it's just generally nicer and easier to move out without all the slush and snow. Take a look at this. Here are the rent changes from month over month for one-bedroom apartments in Toronto over the past 5 years. If you ignore 2020 during the first year with COVID, you can see that rents generally grow fastest in the third quarter, which confirms what Zumper was saying. So if this happens this year again, we should see rents pick up much quicker over the next few months. Next, let's look at medium-term trends. The first thing I'll show you is the relationship between interest rates and rents, which will be clear to understand once you take a look at this chart. When interest rates come down, rent growth slows down, and when rates go up, rents grow faster. Here's why. Low interest rates attract more renters into home ownership, so that ends up reducing the renter pool. At the same time, low rates also attract more investors to buy, and these are the ones who end up adding more supply to the rental market. So basically, when rates drop, supply and demand loosen up, which slows down rent growth. Once rates rise, people end up renting for longer, less rental stock gets added. So supply and demand tighten, there's more rental competition that speeds up rent growth. Now, I've talked about how housing prices are more stable in Toronto compared to the suburbs. But when it comes to rents, it's actually the other way around. Take a look at this chart. When interest rates are low, rents in Toronto and Brampton are more similar, and you can tell by looking at the gap between the two. When interest rates start to rise, that gap gets bigger and bigger. And this again has a big part to do with renters turning into homeowners. The cost of living in Toronto is higher, so Toronto renters generally have higher income. So when interest rates drop and more people become homeowners, it's mostly the renters in Toronto who end up being able to buy a home, and that's probably why Toronto sees a bigger drop in rental demand and rents when interest rates stay low. Right now, as interest rates are coming up, it's likely that it's now Toronto's turn to see faster rent growth again. You might also be thinking COVID probably played a role in the dropping rents in Toronto as well. And you are right. Take a look at this. GTA rentals didn't budge much over the past 2 years, but it was definitely another case in Toronto. Rents might seem high to you right now at the moment, but the reality is that we haven't fully recovered back to pre-pandemic levels in Toronto. Right now, Toronto 3-bedroom rentals are just getting back to early 2020 prices, and 1-bedroom rentals are also coming back up to peak prices, but it's only halfway there. In our opinion, as more people go back to the offices for work and more universities start in-person classes, we are going to continue to see more COVID unwinding. Basically, the type of rentals that saw the biggest rent drops in the last 2 years, i.e. the small Toronto units, will probably end up seeing the biggest recoveries from this point on. The last thing I wanted to touch on are more longer-term rental changes that you can probably keep at the back of your minds. Most people would choose bigger units if they can't afford it, but it always ends up coming down to budget. Basically, those who rent condos typically have better incomes, and this is why we did see a shift to bigger condo rental units over the last 2 years. But renters with lower incomes end up being more constrained by price. So in the more affordable apartments, it turns out that the rent per square foot has been growing slowly, but the rents still haven't recovered completely. In other words, this means that the average size of more affordable rentals actually shrunk throughout COVID. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that since renters reduced their living spaces throughout COVID, this trend is likely to continue. The reality is that we will probably see more demand for smaller homes as rent per square foot climbs faster than our incomes, and this also means that longer-term rent growth might also climb faster in smaller units. So based on our analysis, we do expect rents to come up over the next months. In the shorter term, we might see a faster rent bump throughout the summer, and in the medium term, as interest rates continue to climb, we will also see rent growth follow, with the fastest growth in these smaller units in the 416. Now, you've probably heard me say that we are approaching a very great time to buy an investment property in Toronto. But you might end up getting more than just great price discounts. Think about this. If you get good discounts by buying in the summer and then rents adjust higher by the end of the summer, then by the time your property closes, you end up getting the best of both worlds and your rent yield will look a lot better than normal. Remember, this doesn't happen all the time and typically only happens at the start of each cycle when the housing market is at the weakest. So if you are exploring whether to buy Toronto real estate soon, we'd be happy to talk about this more. Once you're ready, we'll look at your requirements and preferences and then match you up with the best investment property that fits your needs. After we help you buy it, our team also provides renovations guidance, leasing, and property management if you need it. So just connect with us if you want to learn more about our services by heading to the link in the description below. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and look for us on Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn if you want to hear from us more regularly. I wish you all the best in your real estate investing journey. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!